Greetings, everyone. Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the Confused to Focus Talks with Lakeisha. I'm so excited that you're here with us today. We're going to have a great show today, family. Remember, this is the place where we dive into the journeys of understanding how the feeling of being stuck and how to be unstuck. And I'm so excited that we get to have the journey to do that. Definitely, family, we're going to definitely connect. Make sure you invite, and share this amazing conversation because we're going to be having a great one today. And we're going to be coming in with our amazing guests. And definitely, I'm so excited about it, family. We're going to have a great conversation just talking about all things understanding how we can definitely build out of a struggle time in the year 2024, and definitely for us to definitely journey into having some insights on how we can progress and how we can move forward today. So we're going to have some lessons and definitely going to journey with amazing gifts and understanding how to flow in that. We have a great amazing guest, and I'm so excited for you guys to get to know him. This is Albert Geis, and definitely he is an amazing author. He is a definitely amazing lawyer. He is an advocate, and he's also someone who definitely understands what it means when you're feeling abused and when you're being neglected. Listen, I don't want to go into it. He's going to introduce himself, family, but I promise you, you're going to love this conversation and you're going to appreciate every bit of it, family. So buckle your seatbelts and definitely begin to understand what you're going to be receiving today. And I'm looking forward to connecting with each and every one of you. Stay tuned, family. Let's go. Greetings, everyone. Greetings, everyone. I'm so excited for us to have a great conversation today. Wow. Albert Geese, how are you today?
Great. I really appreciate the opportunity to be with you today.
Wow, I'm so excited for us to have this great conversation. Just you really just have so much insight, definitely when it comes to we're gonna talk about. But before we go into that, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and definitely what we have to stay tuned for?
Absolutely. So first and foremost, I'm a dad. I have three kids. I've been married for about 18 years. I am a former foster youth. I was a law enforcement officer before going to law school, and I currently serve as a guardian ad litem.
That is truly amazing. You know what, Albert? I really appreciate you because your journey is really amazing. And I believe you learned so many things over the years and you really know how to really change the scope of really what was given from you in your past. And, we're going to highlight this a lot in this conversation. But before we go into a little bit, we want to greet some amazing guests that really want to say hello to you. Definitely have Lori that's here with us. Lori, how are you? We're going to bring you up to the top. Want to say hello? Albert says hello.
Shout out to LP. Larry's always been a support.
Absolutely. Wow. We're just so excited about that. It's so great to just have people connecting with you. And I believe just having our tribe is truly definitely abundant for all of us. So we definitely need to connect with them for sure. So I definitely want us to get into this conversation. So we have like an amazing slide that we're going to bring up to the top. You got to tell us about this. This is the healing path that I believe that you are being able to instruct and really connect with yourself in order how to heal from the wounds from the past. Let us know a little bit about this before we go into it.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. So when I present at conferences or for training with Missouri Office of Prosecuting Services or other venues, I always get asked, like, how did you make it? How did you heal? I recently shared on social media about half of former foster youth get gainful employment by the time they're age 24, which means half don't. Less than 3% will actually get a college degree in their lifetime. And so, how is it that I am an attorney and I'm not on drugs or homeless or perpetrating or all those things? How did I land on the right side of things? And so, I'm always I always want to turn my experiences into pedagogical opportunities. And so trying to convey these messages in different ways. And I want to show that there's this path that you can follow and this process of disclosing and exploring what you disclose to realize that you're not alone and how you can use that to change how you view and interpret your past and develop coping mechanisms to change how you behave in the present. So this is just a visual I created to explain this process, which is something you can go through again and again, kind of like peeling the layers of an onion.
Wow, that is truly amazing. You know what, Albert? It really just began to dialogue myself through this path because I believe all of us really are able to really break free from a lot of the things that we go through. So when we talk about the first point, when you were talking about, your path of disclosure, you said we can't just keep the hidden and horrible things, hidden from our, locked in, but we have to express what's happening to the abuser because it's toxic. Like, what do you think about that? Like, when you began to really understand that we need to know that?
So a lot of the training and stuff that I do is focused on intervention, stopping the events that causes trauma, and then preventing the future incidents that cause trauma. And it starts with that person being able to feel safe and disclose what's going on so that the authorities can actually do what they're supposed to do, right? And it's hard if you're walking in those shoes because there are so many reasons why you don't want to disclose what's going on. Like, for instance, I may have done things that I feel guilty for. Like there are times where I use manipulation to direct the abuse and neglect away from me toward my siblings or something like that. And that's very, very hard to deal with. It's something that I carry to this day. But through that process of disclosure, like having conversations, I've even had conversations with my siblings about some of the situations. That is what started that process of healing. And everyone that works in law enforcement, in social services and related fields, victim advocacies, should know and it should resonate with them that the process of disclosure, well, it is the actual process. But from me sharing my truths and my journey, I've realized internally that healing is also a process. And the more I release what has happened, what's gone on in my past, the more I'm able to explore it, process it, and heal. And ultimately, I'm trying to be, I want to obviously break the cycle, but I want to be the best husband possible. I want to be the best dad I can for my kids. And so sharing this process, hopefully will help others do the same thing.
Yeah, I really would. I believe it does. Honestly, I believe, we hide a lot because we don't know what to do. We think that we are doing something good by hiding it, definitely, being, abused physically, but we're thinking that we're doing something good. If we hide it, we won't get them in too much trouble. But honestly, I feel that we're getting ourselves in more trouble, and in a more abusive state for ourselves. We really must lose ourselves. I really feel that.
And it's also through that process of disclosure that we start to realize that, a lot of times we justify what has happened. Like for instance, as a kid, I didn't do things to my father's standards. And so that's why I was being punished. But by disclosing it, and so by talking about it and getting out, not only are we showcasing the fact that he's done these really horrible things, but we get to start to explore what that looks like for us and how it wasn't our fault. We don't deserve this. These things shouldn't be happening to us. And so that's why that first step of getting it out there is so important.
Yes, it is so important. I really feel that way. This is really breaking, the mold because a lot of times we're used to just doing it the way we're supposed to do it, where, maybe people like our family members that are close to us, what, don't tell our family business. That's a recycled pattern, right? And we thinking like, no, don't do it. So in our psyche, we think that's okay.
And there's a lot of cultures too that, we don't talk about this. This just happens in the family, it stays in the family. I was just presenting at a conference last week, and someone came up to share from his culture, like it was generational. Like this always happens. And if you actually talk about it, if you share, then you're shaming the family. Don't do that. We all deal with this uncle or this grandfather that does this type of stuff. But through starting that process of disclosure, he was able to get out of that environment and realize that it was not okay and start that process of healing.
Yeah, it really takes, you from, somebody that really has been through it, and all of us, that has been through that, to really just say, listen, I know you may not like me right now, but I don't like me right now. So I have to begin to spread that, to somebody that can really help heal safely and really begin that process that, you truly need and deserve to have for your life moving ahead. This is really good. This is really good. Albert, you have to tell me about the second one. It's really something amazing that I understood, when it comes to, after disclosure, you said the dialogue, have a conversation with disclose, facts, discover, you are not alone and that it is not your fault and it is okay to not be okay. Wow.
Right. So I really want to be mechanical about this. So like whenever I do training for like social services, whenever we have a case and we have to match the legal elements, I'd have them write the facts on Post-it notes. And I did these big Post-it boards with the legal elements, and they would mechanically put it in there. So I really mean being methodical, like talking to at first talking to yourself, right? What does this mean? What does this look like? Disclosure can take many forms. You don't have to do it in a very public way. You could do it by getting it out in a journal, writing it down, or like on a computer, because it has infinite capacity for what you've gone through. But once you've actually got it out, when you're looking at it on paper or in a computer, ask yourself, what does this mean? What does this look like? What should it have been like? Now, hopefully, you can actually have a dialogue outside of yourself, because a lot of times in our mind, we trap ourselves, and it's really hard to break that mold without some sort of outside perspective. So if possible, you have a support group or friends or someone you can confide in. You can actually talk about, man, this happened to me and I feel some sort of way about it. What do you think about it? Or what is that? How does that strike you? And if you could find support groups where someone else has gone through something else, it's that opportunity that shows you that you're not alone. It's not your fault. Other people have gone through this, and you start to explore the next steps as to like, how do you move forward? Does that make sense?
Absolutely. That truly makes sense. You got Lori, Larry actually had said something as far as this. I hope I put him up. And that was, just want to make sure I put him up. There he goes. He said, ACE, the adverse childhood experiences that continues, from our ancestors, generation of curses and trauma. So, I believe that is something that's effective as well, too. So that's what he had to say,
Well,
Albert.
see, that's a perfect point that it brings up. That the whole purpose of ACEs is to, when you look at your ACE score, you see the various forms of sources of trauma, and outside of healing, it negatively impacts your future. My ACE score on the old scale is 10 out of 10. They revised the scale on the new one. I'm 11 out of 13. But it's more than just a number. When I look at that, it gets me curious about why and how people try to move forward. And by researching your ACEs and how it impacts different people, you have that conversation with what you explored, and it helps you find that path forward.
Wow. Yeah. And this is Edward said also, make sure that you're seeing, this recovery looks like, it's helping people to disclose.
No, absolutely. God. When you talk to someone else that's been through something similar and you see the path that they're on, like, man, I want to be there too. Right? How did you get there? Right? But if we're locked in with ourselves, keeping it to ourselves, then we're keeping in that toxicity, and we kind of like bleed on others, and we take it out on others, and no one understands what's going on if we haven't shared what's going on in our mind, what we've been through. But if we're having that dialogue, especially with others, and someone is maybe farther in the recovery, maybe they can bring you along,
Very, very true. Very true. And you got to open it up. Definitely somebody's going to hear you. I really feel that way. It may not feel as normal around others, but definitely the right people are going to hear, and they're going to be able to support.
So in having that dialogue, I think the number one thing I can share is, like, I used to be so afraid to talk about what's going on because I thought the world would come to a standstill, right? Like everyone would view me differently, think of me different. And every time when I first started presenting on my background, my presentation was like 30 minutes. Now I'm up to like half an afternoon, right? Almost 3 hours for some of my presentations. And I've realized each time I shared a little bit more, the world kept turning. And that gave me comfort to move forward. And through that, having conversations with others that have gone through different things, I've learned how to improve on myself. And I've realized there are some things that I probably still need to work on, and some healing avenues I need to pursue as well.
Yes, I know that's right. You know what I'm saying? As you continue to do that, others will come out. You know what I'm saying? And really, they will heal at the same time. I really feel that way. This is really great. This is really great, Albert. We're going to go to the next one. Expose, deconstruct. What stands out? Let's talk about that.
This is when you actually focus on a single thing at a time. So for instance, realizing that my father had mental health issues. He had OCD, but he was an angry and abusive alcoholic. And so whenever we didn't meet these OCD standards, then the physical abuse would come in. And I've chatted with you before. There's a lot of other stuff going on in the home as well. But just taking that one thing, exposing that one thing, pulling it out, I realized that today, when I'm trying to strive for perfection, it's because of that childhood version of me that feared the physical abuse, always waiting for that other shoe to drop. And by exposing it, then I can really focus on that specific behavior. So do I really need to make sure this email I'm sending is absolutely perfect, or is it okay to send a mistake, right? No one's going to beat me up, no one's going to strangle me, I'm not going to have all those different things happen. But it's only when you've disclosed and had a dialogue to realize it's not okay, and really focus on specific behaviors that you have in the present that come from trauma in the past that you really can start to move forward.
You're absolutely right about that. I honestly think, that's more information to find out that, actually making a mistake is not a bad thing. A lot of times, in, a lot of school systems and a lot of places, of learning, it is pretty much saying, if you don't get an A, something's wrong. Actually, no, you're learning, you're continuously learning. And unfortunately, it's a mental thing that's going on within us as children. We feel that, we failed. And that is not true. That's just, we're still grooming, we're still understanding who we are.
And
You know what I mean?
100%. And keeping with the actual fact pattern, it's helped me to break the cycle because it shapes how I raise my kids. So I am always asking myself, am I pushing my kids too far? Am I having them do too much? I'm not an alcoholic and abusive individual, but did that OCD carry through? And so being very intentional and deliberate about how I raise my kids and making sure that trauma, my past trauma, doesn't have an adverse impact on my kids. And I think that's so important for helping to break the cycle. And if I didn't pull out a magnifying glass to look at these specific nuanced behaviors, I want to be able to do that. And I could be carrying along some of those same negative traits.
That is so true. I'm loving how you're saying and talking about, your children, just how you talk to them and communicate with them. Isn't that something, just the difference in how you're bringing it on to them, just inviting them into the conversation, like they have a voice. They're human too. They have a voice.
Yeah, and being open to it, right? It's hard when you raise teenagers. I have a 3-year-old, a 9-year-old, and an 18-year-old right now, and it's hard, but being able to go through this process allows me to take a step back and actually listen. I'm not just commanding everything. It's a two-way street, and I feel I've done a great job raising him. So I respect his opinion and I value his position. Still got to clean his room though.
Exactly. Oh gosh, exactly. I relate to you, Albert. Definitely having that gaps in the age. That you have the 21-year-old and the 18-year-old, and you have the 10-year-old. And it's like two different personalities, different conversations, different ages, and you got to balance it all.
And I've realized, as I heal, as I get farther in processing my own trauma, and I still have a long ways to go, right? I've realized that my parenting style has changed. So the way I've raised my kids have changed. And I know that's kind of typical when you have kids anyway, but I've really backed off quite a bit as far as pushing my kids to be number one in everything, because it was driven a lot by that OCD perfection growing up. I just want to make sure I don't back off too much, because I still want them to be high achievers. It's just I want to make sure it's their choice. It's something that they want to do, and it's not coming from a toxic place of trauma.
Yeah, I love how you're having that conversations with them and just being able to, really lean in and say, give them that grace, give them the benefit, say, hey, listen, I'm learning too. I'm learning. We're working together, and we're able to really get to know each other and understand really just how we can continue to move forward. Let's do this together. I'm loving it. I truly am loving it. Wow. You have so many people. You have someone that says, still got to still do your chores, son.
Yeah, that's non-negotiable. I just,
Absolutely
responsibility for the future, right?
You got that right. Oh my goodness, that is so true. What it is, we're still learning one day at a time.
Yeah.
Wow. I love it. So we're gonna keep it going. So you have our next point, which is truly amazing. And I believe that is educate, how we can learn and, with the clunks, and for us to effectively begin to cope with the strategies and to shape for the present mindset. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. So obviously these kind of flow from one into another. So again, with the same thing as far as looking at my father's OCD and how that impacts me, that perfection, right? So being curious about what this looks like in others and how they develop coping strategies to move forward. So this is where, like, now you've got to a point where you've talked about what's going on, you had a dialogue to see what you did like, what you didn't like, you've deconstructed it. And so now it's like, so how do I move forward? How do I use this? So how do I ensure that I break the cycle? How do I ensure that I'm not pushing my kid for perfection because of my personal fear of being physically abused? And so this is where you're doing your research. So when you look at your ACE scores and all the literature on that, people that have dealt with these types of situations, how do they cope? What are some strategies they use? And knowing that it's not just one size fits all. So you see things like EMDR, and I've never done it. It just sounds like something that really wouldn't work with me. You know, there's some strategies out there like, oh, I don't know about that. But if you're curious and you research, you start finding things that do work, right? So one of the first things that worked for me is a good friend of mine in our community, Leah Abraham, has this 5-step healing process. I just didn't want to do therapy, period. And this was not therapy. And so I did this process with her, but we're following this process where we're conversing, we're having a dialogue, and I'm starting to look back at my past and put a name on it, right? And now that I put a name on it, I realize how it's impacting me. Now I can start to explore different ways to move forward so that my past is not in the driver's seat. My present version of myself is in the driver's seat. And so after doing that, I actually started therapy. So I am currently in therapy. I haven't done therapy since it was mandated by the state when I was in foster care. So it's been 20 years, but because of that growth, I realized there's more healing to do. And so now I'm exploring other avenues.
Absolutely. I truly love that. Just exploring other avenues. I feel therapy comes in so many different forms now. Definitely just having a conversation with friends that resonate with you and that agree and understand where you're going through, and it can give you some insight on how to move forward. I believe that is forms of therapy as well, too. So you have so many people that are really chiming in on the conversation. You have Wise is saying, I love the healing path chart. It makes sense. Thanks so much for that breakdown. And also you have someone else saying, as far as reframing your thoughts and appreciating, for who I am today, and rather than for them to walk into the past. I feel that's great. That's really great.
I really appreciate that feedback. And I have a special guest star. I'm so sorry.
Hello. How are you?
My 3-year-old. I'm in a live interview, and you're in a live interview too. So can you go upstairs to Kai or Keon? I'll be up in a little bit. So
totally love it.
We're live, right?
Totally love it. No, we are live. We are live. I totally love this. Everyone else is loving it too.
This is why it's so important, because I can give him the life that I never had. And that's what it's all about, right? Like, he's my everything. Like my number one coping strategy is honestly my kids. Not living vicariously through them, but seeing that joy and seeing them learn and mature and develop. It's everything. So
that is everything. Honestly, that is nothing like that. And I love how
in his room. He's not there yet.
No, he wants to stay and listen to this. This is what I'm saying about our young. They want to sit and listen to what matters to you, because it matters to them too.
Yeah, absolutely.
It really does. I love it. I truly do. Oh, wow. This is amazing. Wow, we're going to keep it going. We're going to keep it going. This is truly amazing. So we got to get on to Drive, utilizing coping skills to choose how you move forward. Wow.
So this amazing. And he played with my light over there too, so we're having a good time. But this is like when you actually engage. This is when you employ the coping skills that you've learned, right? So once you've developed your plan of how to use those chunks, once you've educated yourself, now you actually apply it, right? And so whether it's like, I don't know, when you let's just say you can become dysregulated from certain situations that trigger you, realizing these are my coping strategies to get back in a safe place. If I do counting, or if I do breathing, or if I listen to music, or I remove myself from the situation, this is when you actually utilize those different mechanisms that you've learned through this process.
Yes, I truly love that. Everyone else chiming in. Larry says journaling, especially for men and males, is virtual for healing.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
He's resonate with that.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
and Larry's really big on that idea of journaling, and there's a lot of guys that like I don't like to journal and everything, but it's so important to use that to start the process if nothing else works, because it that's where I started, honestly. Before I got to the point of verbalizing, I wrote it down, right? Because no one's gonna see it. I just keep it to myself, but I got it out, right? So then I'm having that dialogue with Microsoft Word or whatever it is, but it's a good way to start.
Absolutely. Listen, I feel you. I had to start that way. I had to really get that way because no one else was there to listen and hear me. You know what I mean? So I had to get this out somewhere. And I said, listen, I got to write it down. So I literally wrote pamphlets, pamphlets of wanting to understand who I am. And honestly, it was healing because I was really getting it out on paper. It wasn't just locked in my head,
Yeah.
me figuring it out in my head when it really was not working. You know what I'm saying? So you start off there.
And I'll say this too.
Mhm.
I've shared before. I've written a few books, but my main book, The Fear to Persevere, which shares my journaling and uses my records, I started writing like 20 years ago, and it wasn't this book, not any of the old past versions, because I didn't even know how to talk about what I wanted to say, right? So it probably wouldn't make sense to anyone but me, but it started this process. And had I not done that way back in the day with all these confusing different emotional things that I'm trying to process, writing it out, I wouldn't be where I'm at today.
You're right. You wouldn't be where you're at today if you didn't start the process where you were at. I really appreciate that. We got to go into the next one, and it pretty much is the last one. Definitely, I'm just talking about the education. I don't believe we didn't go through this. So let's bring this back up.
Yeah.
So,
So this was step 4. Like after we break it
mhm.
down, this is the trunk. So disclosure or expel was step 1. Explore, having that dialogue was step 2. Exposing it or deconstructing it, like bringing out the magnifying glass. So looking at my father's OCD and how it impacts me, that was number 3. And then once we start doing we use that to start doing our research, like developing plans to move forward, coping mechanisms, right? That was the educate. And then once we have our tools, once we've created tools or put tools in our toolbox, actually start using it. But then it's really important on that chart to emphasize is that you can go back to the beginning and you start back over, right? You can go through this as many times as necessary. And I do. Like every time I like start from the beginning and I focus about something else. And I say that because like something that I really struggled with. It took me a long time. I could talk about the physical abuse, the emotional abuse, and things that happened to my father killed my mom. I could talk about everything else around me, but there was still this one form of abuse that I just really couldn't talk about. And so even with the types of trauma that's happened to you, you may have to go back to the beginning to start with disclosing that. Does that make sense? I could
It
talk
does
about
make sense.
I could talk about meals being taken away. That's fine, right? And then as I progress, then I start to talk about some of the more heinous things that have happened, and so on and so forth. So just go through it again and again until you feel like you put it all out there and you have the coping mechanisms and you're good to move forward. I will say this, like personally, I feel the scars fade over time, but they're always going to be there to a certain extent. And for me, it's been helpful to accept that, because instead of letting it be in control, I could come up with a plan of action on how I'm going to deal with that, because I still get triggers and I still have situations where I get flashbacks and images in my mind of things that have happened. And I think that's always going to be there to a certain extent. But how I deal with it now changes from how I used to.
Yes. And, you take it one day at a time. I believe, it's a process, you can't put, it in a box where it has to happen in a certain time frame and you got to be totally healed. No, this is a lifetime process. I really feel that way. And when you give yourself that leeway, I believe you're evolving even more and more. You begin to get more information, more, nuggets to really put in, your powder, your pathway, you get more information on how to raise your children. I feel that way. If we, how we understand that, and we always continue moving forward with the understanding that we're still learning, we're going to get more information as we continue to move forward in our process in that way. So I feel that you learn more and more as you give yourself that grace.
And along those lines too, it could also be that after you've gone through this a few times, you start to realize that there are other things that happen that at the time you didn't know was wrong, So for instance, I was working with a youth as a JAL, and I started having conversations about things that were happening at home, asking all kinds of questions. And through that dialogue, we started realizing, and she started realizing, that there were things that were happening that she thought was normal. So she didn't even know it was wrong, right? And that's part of that dialogue. And once you start to disclose, so um, there's some sexually inappropriate things that were happening, and she just thought it was normal. Like, so she doesn't even know to talk about it with anyone. She didn't even know there was concerns. But had she not started this process of opening up and having the conversation, et cetera, and educating herself, she would never even know to ask those questions. But those behaviors were still wrong, and it impacted how she was acting in the present, right? In a way that she didn't want. So it's still important to go through that again and again and again and start uncovering those layers.
It really is. Honestly, that is so real. A lot of times you don't know things are toxic until somebody else tells you it is and really actually shows you how it's not helping you to move forward to the next step. You know what I'm saying? So sometimes you need to hear that from somebody that's not biased, that's not there, to make you feel good. No, you're here to really truly made to make sure I grow and actually value me. And definitely you see something that I don't see.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I feel that way. Yeah. This is really amazing, Albert. Honestly, you just answered, my questions that I was going to answer you, because your amazing platform was so amazing. This healing path, everyone has resonated with it. Honestly, they are literally championing in on that. And honestly, others that are going to be able to listen to this is really going to be healing for them. And they're going to see, wow, I can utilize this to be able to build. I can utilize this where I can excel in my own journey, personally and professionally. You know what I mean? I really believe that.
I really want to create a framework that doesn't require someone to have to figure out their insurance and go pay a bunch of money to some expert or something like that. I mean, like LP keeps bringing it up as far as like the journaling and stuff. You could start this today on your own, and no one has to be there, right? And like social, as far as like finding support groups, there are so many things on social media. You could be careful, because there are good groups and bad groups, right? Make sure it's like something that's moderated and stuff, whatever, but you don't have to pay money to heal, right? You could start this whole process and pay nothing at all. And to me, that's so key, because it becomes one of those barriers, like, well, I want to feel better, I want to deal with this, but I don't have the money, or I can't, right? I think this kind of removes that, right? There's nothing stopping you except you.
I feel that there's nothing stopping you except you. Listen, you can start with what you have. You don't need it to be flashy. You don't need to have all of these tools and resources in order to make it happen. You can really start with what you have. If you have a pot, if you have a spoon, and you're a musician and you just want to hit that pot and spoon, you making music, I promise you, you can definitely continue to build on that. You know what I mean? And continue your journey. I love that. Mm-hmm. This is really great. This is amazing, Albert. You really are truly awesome. And you really have literally showed us different ways that we can actually build and that we can actually move forward in our journeys, just with where we're at. You have to let us know how we can keep in contact with you, because you already know you are so welcome to come back on the Confused to Focus Talks with Lakeisha, and definitely look forward to having more information that you have moving ahead. Please let us know how we can keep in contact with you so we can follow you.
I appreciate that. So on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads, under my name, you can find me at Begin the New Cycle. On TikTok, and same thing with YouTube. I have YouTube videos as well. So like, for instance, my children's book, my other son who's upstairs, he read my children's book and we posted that video on YouTube. So that's at Begin the New Cycle as well. On TikTok and on Twitter, you can find me under my name, Albert Grieve. Same thing with LinkedIn. Instagram is my #1 page. But yeah, I forgot about YouTube. The children's book that I wrote, my 8-year-old read the story to share with other people this message of hope and love. And it doesn't matter what you've gone through, those hard, difficult situations create these seeds of resiliency. And if we can put you in the right environment, those seeds can help you go from surviving to thriving. And so that story, it was really cool that he gets to share in that story. He got to see, by reading it and sharing hope, that kids go through adversity and they don't always have the best situation, but they can grow up to be whoever and whatever they want, an environment where they're loved and appreciated no matter what. So that's on YouTube, and it's free $99, which is the best price, right?
Absolutely.
The books are available to buy, but to me, that was something I just really want to put out there for the world so they can share it and kids can watch like the video and see the little tree and little one and how they progress and they go through, their coping mechanisms and dealing with the traumas that they had to endure.
Absolutely. I truly love it. You have Wise is saying, thank you so much, Albert, and great podcast. You said to appreciate it. And also the one before that, I want to make sure you saw that they were talking about Tupac journaled.
Yeah.
Come on now.
And he began,
did it, right?
Honestly, not forget, if I understand Tupac says that, but if Larry says it, you got to do it, right?
Oh, wow. I truly appreciate it. Albert, you already know this is amazing. I appreciate everything about you. Definitely, at the Confused to Focus also with Lakeisha family is definitely going to support you in everything that you have. Definitely look forward to seeing you next time as you journey out of everything that you're doing. I really appreciate you so, so much.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Albert. Yes. That was Albert Gibbs, you guys. He really is a rock star. He truly is a champion, definitely in the Confused to Focus Talks with Lakeisha family. We really appreciate him. Definitely have to follow him in everything that he has because he has so much resources and so much intelligence when it comes to definitely if you're looking for how to be able to be an advocate for mental health and definitely being a child advocate, definitely you want to make sure that you're championing yourself moving forward ahead, family. Definitely, I so appreciate each and every one of you for coming in to the Confused to Focus Talks with Lakeisha and definitely chiming in and helping us out today. It's been such a value. I appreciate each and every one of you. Definitely, I'm looking forward to seeing you next time, family, as we have our amazing shows. Definitely, we're always going to be here, definitely on YouTube and on all social media and all moving the channels moving ahead. I appreciate each and every one of you. Remember, make sure you share, and like this amazing podcast to somebody else. Definitely don't forget to connect me on my Patreon. Definitely want to connect with me there. And also on my website, LakeishaMosley.com. And also on YouTube, family. I really appreciate each and every one of you. You already know what we do. Make sure you always win. Make sure you always know that you belong. And all you do, lead with confidence, understanding, and love always. Make sure you be blessed, family. Make sure you connect with yourself and always love yourself. And definitely always connect with each and every person. Don't forget, my t-shirt, So Rockstar. Definitely make sure you definitely connect with yourself and make sure you get a copy of it moving forward ahead. I appreciate each and every one of you, family. I truly love you all. Definitely looking forward to connect with you next time we have our episode. So be blessed, everyone, and always choose love. Always choose light. Always know that you belong and always know that you are so rockstar. Blessings to each and every one of you. Be blessed, family.